Hey everybody, Tim Higgins here, so with A&I Solutions, and I'm with the awesome Richard Hallebeek. And if you don't know who he is, then shame on you. I will tell you, if you follow me, if you track me at all, if you're any of my friends, and if you don't own this DVD, then I have to question our friendship. So, but Richard to me is obviously, he is the best jazz fusion rock guitarist player that I know. We're here to talk about how technology and music merge together. And of course, Richard, I'll let you introduce yourself because I'm sure you can do it way better than I can. I'm extremely excited and I could talk for days about you, but I'd rather you do it. So go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for all your kind words, Tim. It's nice to hear. It's very special still to have, if we talk about technology, that we're communicating for such long distance now. Little introduction for me. I started playing guitar in 1979. This was really total different time than it is now. It was just like a jazz guitar, a cable and an amp, and that was it. During the 80s, a lot of stuff was happening, and I went to the conservatory. Still, I did some jazz training, and I was introduced to. This was the time from the LPs. People would give out an LP or a cassette, and I see the guitar in the background from your video. I got some Eddie Van Halen stuff, which was of course awesome. And I got some stuff from also Alan Holdsworth. I got introduced to him, and a lot of great fusion stuff. Also Cassiopeia, which is like a Japanese fusion band that I really liked. A lot of great harmonies. And of course, I was studying jazz, so that happened all through the 80s. And I finished my studies at the end of the 80s. Then I wanted to continue, but there's no follow-up to the jazz education in Holland here. So I got a scholarship. And I went to the place where all my favorite people were, which was Musicians Institute in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And it was Scott Henderson was there, which was also somebody I forgot to mention, which is like my musical father in every way. Everything he does is so much inside me that I know so many of his licks and his phrasing, and that's something I really grew up with. Scott Henderson was teaching there. Frank Gambale was teaching there, another great guy. Actually, he wasn't teaching, but he was living there and doing a lot of seminars there. And there was so many great players there. So the place was pulling on me like, come here, you need to come here. Which is, of course, very expensive for somebody from a foreign country to go for a study to the USA. So I got a little scholarship. Yeah, I was in LA, in the middle of Hollywood. So I got a little scholarship and I got saved some money, and my parents paid just a little bit of money. So I hold it out there for a year. And I took lessons from Scott Henderson for a year, which was really great. He showed me everything just in a different way from the traditional conservatory. After that, I came home and I started working in music, teaching at music schools and playing and recording my own stuff. I was very lucky when I was in LA. I recorded an album with Scott Henderson for Mark Varney. It was called Generator. Mark Varney is, of course, like a big talent scout for guitar players. And I was always a fan of Mark Varney's work, so it was really cool to be in LA, record for Mark Varney, then go home. And then ever since been working on music, recording stuff, writing, composing. I love great composers. I love Ennio Morricone, so many. I love Zappa. And of course, I got to play with Dweezil Zappa. Wow. Dweezil called me one day, like I'm playing in Amsterdam, you should join me. So I played a couple of times with Dweezil Zappa, and yeah, that takes us about right now to the DVD was my last release. And it brings us to almost close to 2024.
Yeah, well, okay.
To 2024, yeah.
It's a massive, massive resume, man. I love it. That is awesome. So I
did a lot of guest work in between. A lot of people call me, especially with the internet.
Yeah.
People call me, or people send me an email, you want to play on my album. And so I did a lot of that stuff too. Sometimes it has become a little bit, I miss people getting together.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's the worst thing about today is the good and the bad and the ugly about the technology is I'm nowhere. My resume is like a little anthill compared to yours. I did go to a music school, so I started in computers, and I grew up in music. Nowhere close as you. I mean, just Scott Hansen alone, just amazing. Alan Hollinsworth, that's so I grew up in the '80s playing guitar, Van Halen, as you know, if you can see in the background. Um, and the funny thing is, after touring and everything, I had a little extra money from the military, so I went to a music school to find out I didn't know how to play. So it was put more work into it. So, but nowhere near yours. But like I was saying, I went to Atlanta Institute Music, which is a subset. We use the same books and manuals as Guitar Institute. It's kind of a way to walk you into it. Um, so, but again, this was early, around the early '90s area, to
Yeah,
where it's wasn't a lot of technology, hardly that stuff was there. But the coolest thing about even working remote, like I watched your video the other day, it's amazing. But it's obviously
thanks.
everybody was in different locations.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
times. It's,
And I was playing it to my son, he's 12, and he was looking at it like, Dad, how do they even, if they're not in the same house, how do they hear each other? Right? Because that's what he's used to hearing in mine. Because
yeah,
I got the electric drums and, kind of like your background, you're in your own little studio there. And then I explained to him, well, it's a lot about the technology today. But what people don't understand too is when you're on stage and, if you're using Wi-Fi, depending on where you're playing, you've got your headsets, you've got your um, digital mixers. Like back in the day, like you were saying when we were recording then, and again, I'm nowhere near you, um, but in recording, the mixer was probably the size of my car, right?
yeah,
Everything was analog, right? So, and I'm just like, I just need one little track, and you'd spend days in this one room. But now everything is so digital and it's so clean that you can do it right there on your iPhone. Not
yeah.
not the best quality, but it's still, still good. Um, so when you play like on stage, do you use any like, well, I guess how did it change coming out of the 80s going into the 90s to now when you're using, if you think about the technology, like I said, back in the day, Fleetwood Mac and these guys, they would just take their little acoustics to the studio and spend hours, Tom Petty, and these guys, they would spend days in the studio and still walk out and it still sounds very analog and acoustic, which is great. I love that stuff. But now when we do it, it's completely different world. Like you can spend hours just in your office making perfect music.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, that's a good question because when I started out, it's I was always interested in make. I was always doing instrumental music. So for instrumental music, it's always nice to have some ear candy. I think
yeah,
if you play instrumental, you play the melody, you go to the solo, and you want to change some sounds. You want to add some effects, you make it a little bit more dry. So when there's a drum solo and I have to play some accents, it needs to be my guitar tone needs to be dry. So I need to get rid of the delays and the reverb. So there was always the if you use like guitar processing stuff, there's always the analog digital converters, right?
yeah,
So your signal gets transferred to the digital domain, and it gets transferred back to analog. And those converters always used to be really shitty in the like in the 80s.
yeah,
You see
exactly.
people with a huge rig, and what comes out it sounds like this. It was really funny, and always the switching. I remember I was using a lot of stuff also, like everything used to be like separate compressor rig,
Right.
separate rig for all the stuff probably. And then when it came out, it still I couldn't switch everything, so I had to switch my head with one button. Then I had to switch the effects with another one. So there was a lot of tap dancing, like
Yeah.
switch effects, switch my head. This is switch the amp head. So there was a lot of switching, a lot of turning knobs, and to get to my sound. So that was really. And if you fast forward now to to the present time, I have like a tube head it's from Hook.
Yeah.
It's a German brand. It's called Hook. It's like an old tube head and it has MIDI, so the knobs they turn around.
Oh,
And
nice.
with the MIDI out, I can connect it to my fractal audio, which is like a great 48K, which is like the highest conversion. And it's you put your guitar in. I put my whole head through the fractal audio. So the whole tube
Yeah,
head
yeah,
gets converted to digital and it comes out analog. And then actually with one button, everything switches. Even my analog pedals, I have some boosting pedals,
yeah, yeah,
which is more like a technical story, but they're all connected to like a looper.
yeah, yeah.
So that looper switches on and off the boosters. So there's actually, now finally everything works with one press of a button. It actually took like 50 years to get there, I guess.
Yeah.
But now it really works. And I feel like I'm cutting down more and more stuff. So I think I don't need this. Don't need that.
Right.
The head has a lot of gain, a lot of high gain, so I don't really need a lot of pedals anymore. So I actually got rid of a lot of stuff. And also, what happened in the past? What if you used to play through a rig? It was like a lot of effects and sounded really big. But then if you plug straight into an amp,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it sounds so dynamic. This actually sounds so great. But no,
Yeah.
I don't have it anymore. So when I plug into my rig, it sounds nice. And when I plug straight into an amp, I still get the same dynamics and the same feel and the same response from the amp. So I
Yeah.
think we finally got there with all the equipment and all the switching stuff is working, and it
Yeah.
actually sounds great, but it also feels great. You play something, and you get something back. So the amp gives and
Right.
takes. So it also comes back to you, and we probably know, like in the old days when you used to plug into one of these effect processors, you don't really hear if you're playing the
Yeah.
front pickup or the rear pickup. It all sounded the same.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we've
Yeah.
come a long way since then.
Yeah, my first one, and I hate it, was the Line 6 Bean.
Oh yeah, oh
I
yeah,
hated that thing because I was a
yeah.
Marshall Les Paul guy, right? I wanted to rock, and I'm like, this thing sounds horrible. I can't get the tube amps to sound right in this thing. So I was very anti those things for a long time. Now I use the GT 1000.
Oh, yeah.
Nowhere close to the refractor, of course, and
That's
my
a nice one.
MIDI. Yeah, my MIDI, which is funny, is actually right here. I use it for my computer as well. It's the Black Star Live Logic. Um, the best thing I like about it is it's big enough to where you don't have to have it on your board. It can be in front of your board. You can lay it anywhere you want, but I have it controlling 5 or 6 different things. And so it's not one MIDI controlling one thing, it's one MIDI controlling everything. And like you were saying, I love it because on stage when you were playing, now I don't do it anymore, I'm married with kids and all that stuff, but back then when I was doing cover bands, I was so afraid I was going to step on the wrong pedal, right?
Yeah,
Or the pedal won't be turned at the right setting. I got a little flashlight in the middle of a song, like, all right, it's the
oh
sync,
yeah.
right? So, and now you just push the button on the MIDI and it's great. So,
Yeah, just when I went to LA, I went to also to Bob Redshaw, which is the great guy. He's like the big guy who builds also the big pedal
yeah,
boards for. Back in the day, he used to make them for Michael Landau for the Edge for U2.
yeah,
So
of
huge
course.
pedal boards. So I thought I want to go there. That's like the best guy. So I went to his place a couple of times and I bought his the MIDI pedal.
Oh,
I
nice.
guess when I took it home in my suitcase, something happened. I took it back to Amsterdam. I think
Oh,
it got beat up or something. So one thing that would happen, everything was set in my pedal.
yeah.
So my lead tones and my clean tones, and then I would do during the gig I would press a couple of buttons, then it would just totally reset.
Oh,
So
no.
imagine like stop the band and I would be with the flashlight like what is
Yeah.
happening? It was a nightmare
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
those days. Also with cables, cables would also be not working well. Now we have these cables that you can just cut off and you can screw on the jack, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
And
our life has become much easier.
yeah, and that's one thing my boss and I, we went and saw John Mayer. Um, don't
Yeah,
know
he's
that
great.
yeah, but he did an acoustic show, and so I'm not a huge fan of pop, and John Mayer to me is a good pop star, but he puts on a really good acoustic show when it's just him. But the one thing I was showing my boss is that there's no cables at all on the stage, so everything is
Ah,
so. And I told him a lot of it's a trip hazard. You don't have cables going into the audience. It just is what it is, right? Um, but also every guitar has a different tone, so he's changing the guitar out every time. And this is one of the things that brought my boss's attention. I said, if you notice, there's a lot of technology right here that most people don't see. When you look to the
yeah.
left, you see this Christmas tree of lights. You look to the right, you see a Christmas tree of lights in the front of the stage, where the mixers are. And I said, but if you notice, there's no cables. So now they're going to have some cables because you got to have that. Wi-Fi can't handle all that. But the biggest thing too is even the people, and I think this is where musicians kind of have grown these days, is we don't send out. I miss records, but we don't mail those out anymore, right? So we
Yeah.
stream things, right? The internet, the best way to get to know somebody, like I'm talking to you, and you're in Netherlands, right? So, and I'm right here in Nashville, Tennessee. So the technology of being able to put your stuff out there is so much easier now, right? So
It is, yeah.
yeah, you spend days, like I said, back in the old days, millions of hours in a studio, and you walk out with a little one song cassette and you're just handing it out. But now you can just reach out to people and say, hey, log in, what's Richard doing today? Let me see these new videos, right? So I think that alone, when you look at, and I know I'm bouncing around, but when you look at where technology has went, just not in performing, but recording on stage, putting your stuff out there. There's so much involved. When you think about if somebody's watching you in a concert, odds are they're going to be recording, part of it to show their friends, hey, look what I'm doing. I'm sitting here doing this. One of the biggest things we found was the studio alone. I mean, the atmosphere of the studio. There wasn't enough Wi-Fi for them to do what they had to do, even though it was a dedicated Wi-Fi, because the audience was using so much Wi-Fi on their cell phones, right? So, and the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is music is 100% about timing. So if you're watching a venue, and I love this because if you're watching a show and somebody, there's a little lag, especially if you're a singer, the first thing people say is, oh, they're lip singing. Like, no, you probably have a delay in your Wi-Fi, right? So, or if you're playing with somebody, and I know you teach a lot, if I strum something, it takes you a minute to hear it. Now my timing is off and it doesn't look right. So there's a lot of that. Oh, I lost your voice.
Computer. I think I'm back now, right?
You yep, you're back. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. That's why I still prefer to play with a cable. I just use a regular guitar cable.
Yeah, me too. I'm not. I'm nowhere. I can't compare myself to you because my resume, like I said, is nothing. It's mostly just bar clubs. But I'm more.
It's fun. The fun part is important as long as you're having fun.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't do price. First of all, is a lot. So, and one question I like to ask is, since we grew up in technology, right? You get these guys like Tim Henson, who is just a master on computer. I don't know if you know who that is, but I can't imagine seeing him live. He's touring with Steve Vai right now. Oh, he was, and that's where I saw him. He's very classical, so he's very classical like. Sounds good, but not really my style. Just really good. He just reminds me of a young kid who's just really awesome on guitar, right? That just plays well, and he tells very classically influenced. But my point is, he's very digital. Very, you can tell everything's digital. But whenever you compare him to somebody who grew up in like the 80s and 90s, we prefer the hard guitar, Alan's whole, there wasn't a lot of technology back then. Somebody the other day, I was reading an article about David Gilmour, another one of my favorite idols. And they were like, well, how does he get that sound? And I'm like, well, most of it's in his fingers and and just in the basic guitar. I mean, yeah, he's got like a $50,000 pedal board, but he's got the volume control. He's turning it down. He's got great dynamics. So, and those are things that I think a lot of kids miss today when they're learning because they just pick up something on YouTube and they figure it out. And I'm like, but you're forgetting the most important part about music is being able to hear it, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, so I'm digressing on that part. But the one thing I like to ask is if you could do something different compared to then and now, right? So then no technology, now with technology. Is there anything that really stands out that you think is great now compared to then?
Yeah, let's your first story about Tim Henson. He's great, of course. He's a great player. He does something totally different. Every once in a while, new player stands up and he does something different. He's one of those guys. It's not really something I would play for when I'm having like a long drive in my car. I'll probably play Pentathene or Alan Holdsworth or one of those guys. But he's great. He's doing some great stuff, and it's indeed he actually can play live because he has a band. But there's a lot of people who just sit in their room and they make like 30-second movies. It has to be short for social media, and they don't actually know how to play live. So put somebody like that on the stage. It's funny because when Steve Vai does this tour, he does this clinic tour. He plays. Yeah, he does. He plays. And he invites a lot of people on stage. At least when he played in Holland, a lot of people could come on stage. Like somebody would play in the next one, and then some people actually they don't know how to improvise. They stand there and it's just like one chord, and they must be great in their room, but they don't have that thing developed where they just can be in the moment. instantaneously and respond to somebody plays something, and that's the great part of music, I guess. It's like a conversation without words. Somebody says something, and you respond to it, and then if you do it really well, it's a really nice conversation.
Yeah.
So when I played with Dweezil Zappa, I played live with him a couple of times. We used to always used to talk about that. Like, let's have like a real conversation, not like somebody play a fast lick and you try to play faster, and then we just go higher and higher. Let's just have somebody plays melody. Let's be quiet a little bit, the little response to the melody, and then the other guy picks it up. So we just try to make really music together. That was really fun. And actually, Dweezil has a huge pedal board. Yeah. There's a big piece of tape on there. There's also some pictures of that going around. And it says with big letters, it said, "Listen," with an exclamation mark. So every time he looks to his pedal board, he's like, listen and be in the moment. Yeah. And that's a good reminder of stop pushing all the buttons and stop looking at the audio, but just listen to the music. Yeah. So that was a good one. About your other question, what has really changed?
Yeah, like, so what has changed? Can you imagine the way you're doing now back in the 80s when technology wasn't where it is? It's still there, just not where it is. So what has made it better for you? Like, what is extremely...
I guess for the studio part, right? Where work. Yeah, it keeps switching to the microphone from my phone. It's indeed technology.
Yeah, exactly. So
the thing I was...
The good news is you'll be Zoom certified by the time you finish this.
Yeah. The thing is, I always liked. I always hated to go to the studio. When you go in, I remember I was in LA when we did the album with Scott Henderson.
Yeah.
And he had like one evening to record like I think 4 or 5 guitar solos in one evening, which is quite challenging. We were in the studio, like Scott Henderson was walking in, and people were walking around me. I couldn't really focus. I was thinking like it should be great to have like my own place where I can record at home. Yeah. In the morning, like have a little espresso and then start working. And whenever I feel like working, I only want to work when I'm inspired, not like studio is booked at that time. You need to perform, you need to be there. It's also a good deadline sometimes. Yeah. But I just want to be able to work at home. So I think that's the biggest thing. I went through all the technology, like the big Roland recorders, the 2480 with the automated faders, so I could record with that one. And now with the hard drives, they've gotten so much smaller. So much smaller, but so much more space. For your stuff. So I remember at the Roland, I could make a backup from only one song on like a zip drive. And now I can just have like so many hundreds of songs on different hard drives. So that made it really easier for me to work in the studio, to be able to work on my own stuff without going out to like. I think there's not a real difference anymore in a home studio or like a real studio nowadays. It sounds great. Is that a good answer to your question?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I didn't think about that. Yeah, because even just playing around here, I feel more comfortable. But like saying back in the day, you book a studio, you're paying for that time, and the band's like, "Hurry up, I got to get the drums in." It's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do here. Hold on. Or I knew what I was going to do, but let me think about it again.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times we weren't satisfied, and we were just like, let's just leave it because time's up. Yeah. We'll just leave it like that, so you just end up with a mistake on your album. It's not good.
Yeah, especially as teenagers, and you're like, okay, who's paying for this?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of loaning and a lot of begging for money at the time. I remember to get everything together, man.
Exactly, too funny.
It was expensive, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Like I said, the price of a car just to get one record in or one song in.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even playing with big names, so we were just goofing off, a bunch of kids. Now let me ask you this: so, playing live, do you use any kind of like most people don't trust Wi-Fi playing live? There's Wi-Fi mixers. Obviously, through the guitar, or you said you use a cord, so you're not using wireless. But wireless is still radio anyway. It's not wireless. I guess you could be. Refractor goes wireless. The GT goes wireless. But I don't know if I would trust it. So
yeah, I have like I have a really small wireless unit. It's from Harley Benton. Harley Benton is like a very cheap brand from Thomann. Thomann is a big internet store here in Europe. Yep. Yeah, it's only like 60 or 70 euros, but it actually works great. I use it for sound check. Oh, okay. When I do sound check, I use the wireless on my guitar. wireless in the actually the input in my pedal board, and then I can walk around on stage and see how everything sounds on the stage. I can go into the audience, play guitar, and see how the guitar sounds.
Oh, perfect.
But then when the gig is there, I use a real cable.
Use it. Okay. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's one Wi-Fi part I use. I guess I use Wi-Fi for. I have a laptop, like actually a small iPad, and then I put it in front of my. I put it in front of my rig, so then I can make the settings.
Gotcha.
So it has like an editor, right? So with the editor, I can do some quick settings, and then sometimes the room sounds really wet or really dry, so I can make some changes on the iPad really fast.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go into all the buttons and all the. So that's the Wi-Fi part, but but for signal, for guitar signal, I have no Wi-Fi during gigs still. No.
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody does for a while because it's hard to trust right now.
Yeah, I think Eddie did, right? But I think he had like really advanced system.
Yeah.
I think he had like three things going on at the same time with a backup of a backup, and
wow, crazy.
Yeah.
Well, one thing is I don't want to waste too much more of your time.
No problem.
Now, but I do want to talk about something very important. I want to put this out there. On top of your music just being awesome, great. You got some great training video stuff out there, which is great. That's where I first saw you.
Thank you.
Your
Thanks.
scale lessons. You took me from a 3-note string per scale to a 4-note, which is awesome.
Cool.
So, but I do want to talk about your beer.
Yeah.
So, tell me about that real quick.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I think that's also the same kind of connection with music for the technology part. Because beer brewing is something that's where old-fashioned people that like in the music industry, guitar players like tubes. In the beer industry, people say it has to be like this or it's no good.
Right.
So there's a lot of pots and pans and a lot of steering, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of cleaning.
Yeah.
And was a Dutch startup project. It's called Mini Brew. They started in 2013. They had this vision of doing something in your kitchen, and like a small machine that could brew any beer you would like. Nice. And they developed it for a Kickstarter project. I think they picked up like 2 million, 4 million, 6 million euros.
Wow! So
finally, I was like one of the backers that paid them money to get the product out, and I was the first guy to get the system. Really works great. It's like a tabletop system in your kitchen.
Yeah.
You can brew the old-fashioned way, but the machine does everything automatically. You make the whole recipe in your computer, and the machine goes through mashing, and it adds the hops automatically in the time interval that you specified in the editor. Nice. And it will boil for as long as you made the recipe in the editor for the times you entered, and then it will do dry hopping and all that stuff. And then finally the keg is ready, and it has like temperature control, and you can follow it on with an app, so you can see what's happening. It will also give you an alert, like you have to change the hops, or you have to add hop, or it's time to tap your beer, or you can bottle it up. Of course, you can add it to bottles. So that made my life a lot easier. Instead of being home for a whole day steering in pans.
Yeah.
And well, now I just turn on the machine with the recipe, and I can leave home and I can see what's happening. And I just need to be there when it's finished.
Yeah.
Then I need to pitch the yeast and then close it up, and that's all. So it sometimes it's working for like 8 hours at home, and I don't have to be there.
Nice. Yeah, I had a friend of mine growing up.
You told me he was interested.
Yeah. Well, he used to brew his beer all the time, and he'd be like, "Oh man, it's been brewing for blah 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 days now," and I'm like, "God, that's a lot of work, man." So your thing. I called him the coffee pot for beer, and it was like a coffee pot but it makes beer, which is great. So, but
I actually have a spare machine. So if he would be around, he could use one of my spare machines and check it out, see if it works.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So he's definitely interested. So he's traveling right now. So he said he wants to check it out when he gets back. So.
Yeah, of course, you need like a converter in the States, but it should work with a converter, and it's also available in the States. If you order it, you will get it. And but that machine is interesting because it doesn't have any buttons. It just works through Wi-Fi, and then through the app. So if there's no Wi-Fi, or if there's like a problem, it's just there's no connection, and it will stop. That's one of the downfalls. But of course, we all have Wi-Fi here everywhere.
Yeah.
And if one signal is not working, you switch to another signal. So it's I never had any problems.
Nice.
But there's some people complaining that in the middle of a brew, something might happen. You lose your brew. So that's the downfall.
So interesting. But you know, I mean, still, it's a good invention. I love it. So it looks cool.
Yeah, and I've always very inspired by the States because America is like the father of brewing great beers. It started all in the States, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it was like around 1935.
Yep. So
Yeah.
so
So there's a lot of there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of great microbreweries.
yeah, I was trying to think of what it was called at the time, where it was just they were making the beer and hustling it under the, you know, sneaking it around.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff. So, well, Richard, I don't want to keep you too much. I could talk to you for days, man. It's awesome.
It was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it. So maybe we'll do a follow-up one day just for kicks and
Sure.
giggles. Now,
Anytime.
tell me what you're doing now, just so we can get people out there. You're teaching, you're touring. What you doing now?
Yeah, I just finished the project with Lorenzo Feliziati and Gergo Borlai, which is a great drummer, and I did all the mixing and all the mastering on the project. So I'm like a control freak. I play the guitar solo, but I also like to mix everything and also adding some different touches here and there.
Yeah.
And I'm also doing the mastering. So like the artistic vision doesn't end with just playing a solo and just sending it back, but it goes all the way to the end for me. Like I wanted people to listen to it like that, and I want people to be. I want it to sound like this and that with more low end, or this it should be louder there and softer there. So I just did the whole thing, which was really nice. I'm working on my guitar still. This is like the custom guitar I use.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice one. I got them a couple of different colors. You can see the other colors in the background.
Yeah.
But this is basically it. And I'm working on the pickups. There's like the pickups like hand wired. That's like the old-fashioned part. Old-fashioned hand wired pickups by Klopman. Klopman is a pickup builder in Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
And he makes these are custom pickups. So we're still kind of working on finding the best combination of what I would want to hear. But it's always humbucker single. I like that.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
Yeah.
So where can people find this guitar at?
They can get it from my website. They can even order it from my website. So it's all really nice.
Oh,
it's
love that. Yeah,
a little bit combined with the old-fashioned building quality with some modern features like a more modern style bridge.
Yeah.
And the neck is like a compound radius, where it's like a little bit more rounded here.
Oh, nice.
When you go up, it becomes more flat, so it's easier to play the higher frets.
Love it.
Yeah, it is light action. It's very comfortable, but it still sounds like a real guitar.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not like some guitars that sound like too narrow. This is real you can make it sound like a real big sounding thing. Actually, that's what I like. I love Alan Holdsworth.
Yeah.
I like him especially when he played in the old days when he played when he sounded like a real guitarist. He always sounded great, but at the time in the 70s.
Yeah.
that was my favorite time.
Oh yeah, I agree. So yeah, I have all his CDs, man. I love it. So,
yeah.
So I love the guitar. It reminds me of almost a Sure and a Music Man had a baby. So I love it. It's great. So awesome, man. Well, thank you. And I will say goodbye, but I'll stop the recording and then we'll talk for a few seconds.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tim. It was fun.
Oh, I loved it. Are you kidding? Look, that I can do this for days. And I'll send you my address so you can send me the guitar. So.
Yeah, what color do you want?
That one's fine. I like it.